Okay, so we are doing the constructed response to remediation. We're going to see how can we improve our grade. That's what we're doing in this room. This is the rubric that I use to grade your constructed response assignment. So some of you probably lost 10 points for your writing skills. Maybe you lost 10 points for your reading skills. Or maybe you lost 10 points because you did not support your answer correctly. We're going to go over how to give a great constructive response and score 10 out of 10 in each of these categories. Constructive response to the prompt. First of all, when you're creating a constructive response, you want to understand the question or the writing prompt. For constructive response 2, the prompt was to summarize the main idea and key details of the text. Be sure to explain why each of your key details supports the main idea. We use the RACIS strategy to complete the constructive response. Remember, in order to answer the question correctly, you first need to understand what you're being asked. If you don't understand the terms summarize, main idea, key details, are you going to be able to give an answer correctly? No. So let's understand what we're being asked first. Summarization means to capture all of the most important parts of the original text, but express them in a much shorter space and as much as possible in the reader's own words. So that's what you're doing. You're summarizing the main idea. You're giving the main idea of the text in your own words. Now, what is the main idea? It's the most important information or concept in a text or statement. What's the most important information? You're not giving those details. You're giving the most important information. Not all information is equal. Some of it is clearly more important than the rest. Key or supporting details are going to be the main points that the article stated, not those nitty-gritty little details. So-and-so said this or so-and-so said that. We want the big ideas, the key ideas. And they must strongly support the meaning or tell the story. They are statements that define, describe, or otherwise provide information about the topic, theme, or main idea. So now that you have an understanding of what you're being asked, you now need to read the text and look for those points as you're reading the text. Does anyone have any questions on what you're being asked for constructive response to? What you're responding to? Okay. All right, so let's read. I will read for you. Let's look at the article. The first part that we're going to do is, remember that we said, how can we summarize something? What's a good guide to help us summarize? We could use the question words. Who, what, when, where, and why. That's going to give us an idea of how we can summarize the article. So what I'm going to ask you to do as I'm reading is to give me the who, what, when, where, and why of the article. Once you complete the following based on the article, it'll help us come up with the main idea. Okay? So the article is titled, Watch Your Electronic Footprint. Scanning the want ads in your local newspaper, you find what you think is the perfect summer job. You submit an application and schedule an interview. Dressed to impress, you meet with your prospective employer who seems quite taken by your appearance, poise, and eagerness to work. The job is yours, right? Maybe not if the employer tracks your electronic footprint. I'm just going to stop there. Okay, or actually, no, I'm going to keep going, sorry. Life in the digital age. Computers, networks, and the World Wide Web have changed the way we share information. Letters and long-distance phone calls have become passé. They've been replaced by text messaging, and the internet phenomenon known as social networking, a quick way to maintain contact with friends and family in a communal online space. Most social networking sites enable users to create their own web pages that include photos, background information, and blogs. What network users don't consider, however, is that these web pages also provide employers with a new, completely legal way to check out potential employees. How so? Well, employers simply have to go to the networking website's homepage, join the network, and search for the person they're interested in learning about. If the person has a web page on that network, and if the page has a global access setting, any and all information posted there is available for public viewing. If the person's web page has a restricted access setting, the employer can ask to join that person's select network of friends. Of course, the person can deny the request, but research has shown that he or she probably won't. A recent study of 14 to 21-year-olds who use social networks showed that 66% of them allowed strangers to access their web page. Job applicants should be mindful that personal information might be accessed not only through their own web page, but also through those of their friends. The information on friends' pages may not be accurate. In addition, photos on the web can easily be downloaded, manipulated, and reposted on their web page. Many social networking sites allow users to tag photos with names, making it easy for employers to locate images by typing a name into an internet search engine. But does it matter? Perhaps the willingness of young social networking users to allow free access to their web pages has something to do with an overall lack of concern about the consequences. The study previously mentioned also showed that 75% of users were not too worried about important people viewing their personal information. Yet they might do well to reconsider that attitude. Human resource departments increasingly rely on the internet to recruit and research workers. 1 in 5 employers use the internet to research information on job candidates. Nearly 60% say that what they find has some bearing on their hiring decisions. As one company spokesman says, potential employers are never more than a few clicks away from information about you. So mind that electronic footprint. Everybody writes. I think a big word here is electronic footprint. Even if you weren't sure going into reading this what an electronic footprint is, do you now know what it is? What is an electronic footprint? Because that's what this article is essentially about. What is an electronic footprint? Okay, so the history you leave behind electronically. Footprint, look at the play on words there. When you leave footprints or an animal leaves footprints in the snow, you're leaving steps behind you. Someone can follow them to find you. So anything you do online is your electronic footprint. It might be something on Snapchat that you posted, something that you commented on, a picture somebody else tagged you in on Facebook. That's your electronic footprint. Okay, so let's figure out who's the who, what, when, where, and why of this article to figure out what it's about. Who it's about. It's about job applicants and their prospective employees. That means a prospective means someone who might possibly hire you. So you could be the job applicant, and a prospective employer is someone who may be your employer. You want them to be. What? It's about the employer tracking you electronically. Did I spell that right? I'm sorry. Yes, I did. I'm sorry. Tracking you electronically before you go in for the job interview. So you might, as the opening article states here, it says, oh, you're dressed to impress. You think you're all great, your appearance, your poise, your eagerness to work, you're going to get the job, right? But the thing is what's happening is employers are tracking electronically you before you go in. They know you before you go in, especially if you're not, if you're doing certain things on the internet that are not protecting your identity. So employers are tracking you electronically, possibly without your knowledge. When does this happen? Well, when you go and apply for a job, or after you have applied for a job, and they're interested in you. Wouldn't you do that if you were going to hire somebody? Now that we live in a digital age, as they say in the article, and it's so easy to access information about people because they so willingly put it out there. So I could go to a job interview and look great, feel great, have the skills, but my prospective employer, the person who's going to potentially hire me, is like, I want to know if this is the real person. Let me just do a little background information on them. Let me see what they have on the web. They're saying they're an honest person. They're saying that they're reliable. They're saying that they don't like to party, that they just like to work. Well, I'm going to go check out their Facebook page and see. And so they go and they say, oh, look at, they're with their family, they're volunteering. This is a good person to hire. Or they're saying, wow, this person is very nasty on the internet. They're leaving a negative footprint in the world electronically. Maybe I'm not going to hire them. Okay, why are they doing this? I think the where would be on the computer, we could say. And the why would be they want to know that you are who you say you are when you apply for a job before they hire you. Okay, we won't go into these. So this is going to, this is our summary here. What is it about? Job applicants and their prospective employers tracking their electronic footprint. So prospective employers should be careful what they post online. That is what this article is all about. So when we summarize it and we give a few details that show what this is about. Now let's go and follow the RACES strategy. Remember that we said RACES stands for, R stands for restate and answer the question. Cite evidence from the text. We need to go back in and get information from the article that's proving what we said is the answer is the correct answer. You need 2 pieces of evidence for this. And then in your own words, you're going to explain how this evidence supports your answer. So this is really where your own words come into play here. As you can see, we've given you sentence starters. This isn't always going to be the case, but we really want you to be able to understand what you need to be doing when you complete the constructed response. And then in the S, summarize what you wrote. Don't summarize what you read in the article. Summarize what you wrote. This passage was about. Basically, you're restating your answer at the end. This is a full paragraph. You have an opening sentence and answer. This is what, if a stranger were to read your response, they would know what you are being asked by your answer. That's why you need to restate and answer the question in the first sentence. Okay, we're going to write this together because I want you to be able to see this. So in our first sentence, restate and answer the question. We gave you a sentence starter to help you. Remember, if we go back to our prompt, what the prompt was. It was summarize the main idea and key details of the text. Be sure to explain why each of your key details supports the main idea. That's okay. So, they gave you a sentence starter. How are we going to start this off? The main idea of the text is, remember, we already gave the answer. We wrote it here. We summarized what the main idea was. We know the main idea is about prospective employers tracking your electronic footprint. So be careful what you could say it however you want, you leave behind online. So we answered the question. We restated the question and answered it. The main idea of the text is, actually we could reword that too. Be careful what you post online. Be careful what you leave behind online, I should say, because it could be anything. What you do online, because prospective employers may be tracking it. Now, how do we know that that is the right answer? How are we going to know that that is the right answer? Because we're going to move to the next part of the racist strategy, which is the C. We're going to cite evidence. Evidence is the information we got from the text to show us that this was the main idea. This is the part where you have to go back into the text and find that evidence that is showing the reader of your constructive response that the answer is, be careful what you do online because prospective employers may be tracking it. So let's go back into the text and find some information. You have to reread and find those citations. Let's highlight when we see something that could possibly be evidence that's showing us that prospective employers are going to be tracking our electronic footprint. Okay, so now that we have some details from the text that is showing us that the main idea is that employers are going to track your electronic footprint, so you need to be careful what you post. We're going to pull two pieces of evidence from the text. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to take this first sentence that we came across here. Most social networking sites enable users to create their own web pages that include photos, background information, and blogs right here. What network users don't consider, however, is that these web pages also provide employers a new, completely legal way to check out potential employees. So you're going to take that whole sentence there, put it in quotation marks, because quotation marks are stating that you pulled it directly from the text. That is a piece of evidence that we are going to use to show that this is about potential employees tracking your electronic footprint. So let's put that in our response. If we go to the next page, we can say one key detail from the text that shows the main idea is, and I would put when the author states, actually let me pull up my constructive response. We already have the main idea of the text is to watch what you put online because prospective employers will have access to that information and use it when hiring. So you can even go back up into the text and highlight within this document. Here's where my first quote that I was going to use. Highlight it. And then you can go down here, pull it and put it into the quotations. One key detail from the text that shows the main idea is when the author writes, what network users don't think about, however, is that the web pages also provide employers with a new, completely legal way to check out possible employees. Another detail from the text is a recent study, you can pull this one, of 14 to 21-year-olds who use social networks showed that 66% of them let strangers look at their web page. You could use that one. Or what I like better is to go back to the bottom where it shows the study talked about before also showed that 75% of users were not too worried about important people viewing their personal information. Why is this important? Why are these key details? Because they're all showing that that you need to watch your electronic footprint, which means don't leave your don't make friends with people you don't know. Don't leave your web page open for others to be able to access it easily. Why? Because these prospective employers are looking at it and you're not being careful with what you post. So we're going to take the detail of a recent study of 14 to 21-year-olds who use social networks showed that 66% of them let strangers look at their web page. So now we've filled in, we have both of our details. So is when the author writes or when the text states. Okay. Now we're going to explain your answer. How do these details give us the main idea that to our answer? Watch what you put online because prospective employers will have access to that information and use it when hiring. This is where you give your own thoughts. You gave the answer. You gave the citations from the text. Now you're going to explain to me, the reader, how they back up this answer. How do they prove that your answer is the correct one? These examples show, you can start it off that way. These examples show what the passage is about by stating that employers are going to look at your electronic footprint and they have every right to. It's legal. If it's open and someone tagged you in there, they have every right to. Okay? And we can add here, because in our next it says, a recent study of 14 to 21-year-old users who use social networks show that 66% of them let strangers look at their web page, meaning the text is showing that users are not being careful what they post online. And remember, we said that you should be careful right here to watch what you put online. So it's showing that they're not being careful. The text is showing that users are not being careful what they post or who they let in or who they let see their electronic footprint, we could say. One should be careful when they post online because of this. Overall, this passage is about, this is where you sum up what you wrote. Being careful what you post online because prospective employees, I'm sorry, not employees, employers will have access to it. Okay, so now we filled out all the parts of the racist strategy. We restated and answered our prompt or question. We went into the text. We found two quotes or two key details in this answer that back up that prospective employers will access our information online. One of those details was that it's perfectly legal to do this, and they do it. Said that in the text. Another said in the text that a study showed that kids, 14 to 21-year-olds, let strangers access their web page. So it could be that prospective employer looking at you, and you just let them in. So how do they back us up? How do they back up the answer? The examples show what the passage is about by stating that. Employers, they're going to look at it. They have every right to, and you are not being careful about what you post online. So you must be mindful of it. And then in the summary, you say, what was it about? You should summarize your answer again. Overall, the passage is about being careful what you post online because prospective employers will have access to it. Now, we filled out the whole chart, but I don't like that to be our final. I want you to put it all together in a paragraph so that it sounds right. And as you can see, I already went ahead and did this when we first did it, but since we added a little bit more details, we added that second citation. I'm just going to show you what I like to do. Copy it, okay, and paste. First sentence. Next sentences are our two key details, our citations. You're going to, and then I like for you to clean it up as well. And then explaining our answer. And our summary sentence. This was a little bit longer than what's even necessary. When you go back in here, I'm going to just give you an example of what you need to be writing. So the restate and answer, as you can see here, was one sentence. This was one sentence. This should be at least two sentences. We have one here and one here. So this is going to be at minimum 2 sentences for this part. Explaining your answer should be 1 to 2 sentences. And summarizing your answer, 1 sentence. So altogether, we should have 1, 2 here, that's 3 sentences, 4, 5, 6. Your answer should be at least 6 to 8 sentences. Okay, then you smush it all together and you have a beautiful paragraph that has an opening sentence, a closing sentence, and the proof in the middle. So let's read it and see if it sounds right. The main idea of the text is to watch what you put online because prospective employers will have access to that information and use it when hiring. One key detail from the text that shows the main idea is when the author writes, what network users don't think about, however, is that these web pages also provide employers with a new, completely legal way to check out possible employees. Another key detail from the text that shows the main idea is when the text states, a recent study of 14 to 21-year-olds who use social networks showed that 66% of them let strangers look at their web page. These examples show what the passage is about by stating that employers will look at your electronic footprint and have every right to. The text is showing that users are not being careful what they post or who they let see their electronic footprint to. We should clean that up a little bit. One should be careful what they post online because of this. Then we have our closing sentence. Overall, this passage is about being careful what you post online because prospective employers will have access to it. We restated in that summary. So we have now completed a beautiful constructed response. Does anyone have any questions on recreating the constructed response? So what I want you to do tonight is revise, edit, or write, if you didn't write it yet, your constructed response. Begin to write it. I'm also going to give some class time to do this on Friday as well. And this is recorded, so if you need to revisit this at any time, you are able to. All right, thank you. You guys can go. Have a great day.